Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about book publicity. Yes, that is the topic of today. And I have JB here who's going to help us think about this in a whole new way. So thank you so much, JB, for coming onto my show, sharing your time and your perspective with me. Let's just dive right in. When you hear those words, book publicity, what does that make you think about?
Well, first, I want to thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. As a lesser known author, book publicity is daunting. That's probably the word that comes to mind for me. It is,
Yeah.
if you are selected by the big five publishers, and even then, you don't get a ton of publicity unless you are chosen to be their golden child of the year or the new debut. And then your book pops up everywhere and, it's on the New York Times bestseller list and you get tons of interviews, et cetera, et cetera. If you're lesser known, you have to do all the hustle yourself, everything.
Absolutely. And I even read, I mean, I even seen across where it's not even really, it's not even a real like bestseller because half of the time it's just you pay your way and you get your way through. You know what I mean? You could pay your way and get awards to put you on magazines and pay. It's like you are literally paying your way to get your publicity, and people don't realize that I'm an author too. I wrote children's books, so I know exactly what you mean. And it's all comes down to who you know, what you know, how much money you have in the bank, and how much money you're willing to spend. You know what I mean? And it's really,
Exactly.
really frustrating. So this is like, what is another misconception that you have come across when it comes to publicity?
Well, I'm traditionally published. I went straight through a publisher. I don't have an agent. And it's a lesser known publishing house, but they publish over 100 books a year. So they're out there. And I just sort of expected, I mean, I guess I didn't expect the book tour across, the country. That I didn't expect, but I did expect a little bit more than a smaller press is apparently capable of doing. So my book is available wherever books are sold, which is great, except it's not actually in those stores. It's just available. So you would have to know my book, walk up to the desk, ask for it. They'd see that it's not on the shelf, and then they'd ask you if you wanted them to order it. And I don't know about you, Mitzi, but I usually say no to that question because I feel like I can go home and order it on Amazon, right? So why would I wait longer to get it through the lesser known bookstores?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's frustrating. Like I'm the same way with you. Like why would I delegate that task to you and I could do that myself? I could find it on Barnes and Noble's website. I could find it on Amazon's website. I could find it on Goodreads' website. I could find it on Walmart's website. If that's the case, then I could just do it myself. So yeah, it is really frustrating because a lot of the times I come across authors who say that even with self-publishing or even traditional publishing, it doesn't matter which avenue you go towards, you will still have to do a lot of the marketing yourself. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that a lot of people who want to write books or who have written it but haven't actually stepped forward into publishing, that's where they halt them because they think it's like, oh, I'm going to get famous, I'm gonna be like the next JK Rowling, I'm gonna be the next whatever that other people, those other people's names, you know what I mean? Like they think they're gonna be the next big thing, but it's in reality, it's like you have to write a book not for the goal of being the next superstar author. You know what I mean?
That
You
is
have to write
absolutely
the
true.
book to actually know that one day someone might read this and have a change of heart, change of perspective, have a relational experience, relatable, you know what I mean? Things like that. So it's like, what made you actually write your books?
So my first book is based on a family history mystery. I was sitting with my grandmother in assisted living, and she said to me, there was a man who used to watch me when I was in grammar school. He'd sit on the bench and I would be on the swing and he'd just watch. And I always wondered if that was my dad. And I startled because I thought I knew who her father was. And she said, no, no, that's my stepfather. My real father disappeared when I was two. So I did some research into him, and he was not that typical, I'm going out for milk and I'm leaving my family kind of guy. He left for more honorable reasons. And so I wanted to tell that story. I did a lot of research on it and I got a lot of answers, but I didn't get all the answers. So what I did is I created sort of a nonfiction, but filling in some of the holes for my dad and for his mother. And then when that was done, I said, okay, now I'm going to turn this into a novel and I'm going to fictionalize a lot of it. So what's unique about my novel is people always write names have been changed to protect. All my names are real. Every name in my book is the real person, but the story is different. The story is fictionalized. So,
Way to just switch the turntables right there, because yeah, usually it's the opposite. Oh, we change the names to protect the person, but in reality you were like, no, screw that. We said the names and we
yep,
protected the story.
exactly. And anyone who would have had an issue with it is now past. So I don't really have to worry about it, right?
Right, exactly. You're dead, long and gone. What can you do? Haunt me in your graves? You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
no,
right.
I think I am good. That is lovely. I think that's a beautiful way to just share somebody's experience, share somebody's story, and then provide an understanding that maybe, you know what I mean, people never even thought about, you know what I mean? People never even considered, because that is the beauty of writing, is that you are the one in control, you are the one in power. So what is the hardest part that you had to face when it comes to marketing and doing your own publicity for your book?
Oh, there's so many. Basically just getting it out and in the hands of readers. I use TikTok. I use all social media, but I use TikTok as a format to talk about the book and publicize the book and also help other writers and so forth. But I don't have a TikTok shop for the book because I'm trying to sell the second book to agents and hopefully the big five. So I want all my sales to go through the sales in the bookstores so they pop up and they're seen when the agent searches for them, which means a lot of calling, emailing, and going to bookstores all over the country, even the world actually, and trying to get them to put the book in their store. And I actually planned a cross-country tour very shortly after the release. And I found that I went with another author and we started in Montana and we drove to Maine. And then yeah, 2 weeks. I was fortunate enough to have that time and the financial ability to do that. It's not something that everyone can do. And so we turned that tour into what we called the Get After It tour, helping lesser known authors make a bigger splash in the sea of book publicity. So
Yeah.
we made sure that the stops along the way understood how the lesser known authors struggle, what we need from them, and how we can help them. Because as I'm going across the country and I'm stopping in a bookstore in Chicago, and their attitude is kind of like, well, you're an author from Boston, and why do we care? I had to point out things in my book or things in our journey that would make them care. So, for instance, my book is set in 1913 Boston, and it's the story of a middle-class woman who falls in love with a Greek immigrant, and nobody's very happy about that in 1913 Boston. So they elope, and all is going fairly well. She's moved into the West End of Boston, which was truly a melting pot, a great place. They've since leveled it, of course, right? But she moves in there and he disappears. And she doesn't know why, but the reader does because it's dual point of view. And so, for instance, in Chicago, I highlight the fact that he's a Greek immigrant because there were a lot of Greek immigrants in Chicago. And suddenly the book becomes relevant to them. And then they want to have it in their store. And if I'm there signing it, that brings people in. And I would always market that on all my social media. Hey, I'm at such and such a bookstore. Come see me. And that helps them as well as us, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one thing that small bookstores don't realize, is that you can not only help yourself, but you can help somebody else as well. I mean, if you own a bookstore and your love for books is really real, versus your love for money, then you will realize at the end of the day, it's another book, it's another token. That's real currency. You know what I mean? Knowledge is currency, books are currency, because you can
Yes.
read every single book that's out there in this world and have more knowledge than all the Ivy League
Oh,
individuals. You know what
absolutely.
I mean? Because, or even the same amount of knowledge, because just because you're reading every single book that's out there. So having that availability, knowing that it's there, is something that I think most bookstores don't actually understand. You know what I mean? That's another book in their, and for them to sell, for them to make that
Right.
a little extra money, you know what I mean, that you're willing to work with and help out. So like, how many books did you have like in your trunk?
So, fortunately, because I am traditionally published, even though it's with a small press, I am able to have them buy it through what's called Ingram. That's
Okay.
the distributor. I did bring books with me because every once in a while you land at a store, you've planned it in advance, and they don't have the books, right? So I usually have about 20 books in my trunk just in case, or for that person who, we're talking at a bar and they're like, "Oh, I want your book." And I'll say, "Well, I have it in the trunk if you want it." So every once in a while, I'll sell it that way. But as I said, I try to sell it through the bookstores and through or Amazon, Barnes and Noble online, through the sales places that get counted so that people will see it. Because unfortunately, that matters. When
Yeah.
you're trying to sell your second book or get your second book picked up by an agent or a publisher, how your first book did is very important. And it's challenging because as a lesser known author, your book's not going to do as well as, the person that they picked up last year who has their second book out because they've already promoted that first book and now it's the second book. And so we don't, as lesser known authors, necessarily have the cachet that we need to, show up on their radar.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So what is your advice for these new authors that already started the publishing process? They know that they're going to have very little marketing publicity for their book. What is the best advice that you could give them?
Well, publicity for your book is a full-time job. And that's why I want to go with the big five because I've been doing publicity since my first book came out, and it's really slowing my writing. So the first thing they need to know is it is a full-time job. So now you're going to be working probably two full-time jobs because most writers can't support themselves, plus trying to write. That said, there are some things that I've found when I'm talking to lesser known authors that they don't know that can really help them. First of all, I would say email any bookstore that is not local. If you want anyone in a town that you can't drive to, email them. Second of all bookstores love to promote books that are just coming out. So make sure you've contacted them before the book is going to be published, and then you can set up a signing. And signings, I find in my experience, have been better than readings because people just walk in a door, you say hello, how are you? How's your day? You get chatting, and suddenly there's a rapport and they want to read your book. Whereas sometimes with readings, the people who are coming already have the book, or they're just coming out for some entertainment. And don't get me wrong, you make sales at readings, but I just find that I do better at signings. And the other thing is you have to be willing to pound the pavement. Go out to your local bookstores. And I don't mean just the one that's 15 minutes away. I mean the one that's 2 hours away. Call them, see if they'll do a signing with you. Make sure you have your books ready. A lot of bookstores will do consignment with self-published authors, and you can make some good money that way because they're giving you a significantly larger percentage than I get when my publisher finally gives me the percentage of the sale of my book. I think I make $1.47 per book. Whereas if I'm selling it on concession, I'll make about half of what the cover cost is. Um, and the third thing is network, network, network. Trade reviews with other authors. Be willing to, promote other authors so that they'll help promote you when the time comes. And make sure you have a good product. Lots of editing, lots of revision. Make sure it's good before you put it out there.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. You have to really make sure it's good, because if you publish a bad book with really bad grammatical errors where the readers can't bypass all of those grammatical errors, they will bash you and they will not read anything follow up. Even if you have gotten better through each book and you finally got an editor and you finally did the right revisions, if that first book has given you a bad name, it will scar you for the rest of your life. That is most definitely something that I heard along the way. So I'm literally in my third revision and my third draft before I officially start my publishing process when it comes to my novel, because I'm a children's author. But I know I have my novel that's I've been working on, and I've been working on diligently, because you're right. You have to cut things, you have to add things, you have to maneuver it, and you have to give yourself time. You know what I mean? Give yourself that grace, realizing that you have to look at it in different angles because everybody has a different perspective. So you may know the book in and out because you're the writer and you see it and you can visualize it. But if that person who's reading it and picks it up does not see what you're trying to convey, it's a lost cause. You have just lost one person that could be millions of people. You know what I mean? So it is truly interesting how people don't realize, like, it is a tough game to be in, but it is worth it at the end, because when you have a very elegantly written book and it's published out into the world, you'll have this pride knowing that this is
Mhm.
out there, this is a part of me, this is a part of my family, this is, even if I would die tomorrow, I know that this will be my legacy, this will be out there, and I will continue on living. I feel like it's an immortalization for us authors, because we can die tomorrow and then 30, 40, 50 years from now, it could possibly be the biggest hit. You know what I mean? We don't know.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like we are leaving a legacy that one day somebody can truly know that, okay, I am not alone in this world. So yeah, I
Absolutely.
think I think everybody has a story that they can tell inside. And I'm glad that you wrote your story. I'm glad that you wrote your grandmother's story, because yes, you have something that's truly wonderful. And it sucks to know that time is catching up to us. So what can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Well, with publicity, I think it really has to be, you have to love your book. And you know what? I think a friend told me this, and it changed my life. You can't be afraid to hear no.
Mhm. I love that. And one thing that I'm working on is realizing that no can be a gift. You know what I mean? That is
Yeah.
one thing that I'm learning, and I'm trying to teach my boys, but they're so young that they don't know any better. They're like,
Mhm.
"No, I don't like no. I don't want no." You know what I mean? And as we grow up, we realize no can be sometimes a burden, but when you allow time to change your perspective, you realize a no can be a gift, because maybe they weren't the right publicity, publication company. You know what I mean? Maybe they actually were a scam, and you just saved yourself by them saying no to you. You know what I mean? Like, I've
Yes.
heard so
Yeah.
many crazy stories about people getting scammed thousands of dollars, because
Yeah.
depending on the agency that you go to, and depending on the self-publishing route that you go through, you can pay a pretty penny for it and then not even an increment of the amount that you invested in. So
Yeah.
truly, I say, pay attention, do your work. And I love that. Yeah. Take no as a gift, because you never know where that yes will lead you by all the doors that you're knocking on. So yes. Oh, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much, JB. And ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this conversation as well, because how could you not? Please go check her out. I have her website
Can I
available,
do
and
this?
yep, exactly. See her lovely book. Her website has access to her book. You can find it there. You can go on Amazon. You can go everywhere, just so that you can continue on thinking, ladies and gentlemen. With that being said, bye.